Let's bring up Erin.
So I met my friend Jed, and a year and a half later we decided we were going to take ourselves on an adventure. We were going to walk in Wales and England, including walking from the source of the River Thames all the way along the Thames into London. Jed would describe herself as a wee Glaswegian, and I would describe myself as a rather large American. Jed also can't hear out of one ear, and I have fibromyalgia, or chronic pain. So put together, we're quite an interesting adventure pair. Flash forward to day 19 out of 23 of our walk across Wales and England. We're walking on this current day from Bourne End to Windsor, which is the town that has the big castle. The sky is a crisp blue. It's the end of September. If you look down at the grass, it's golden. The trees are starting to turn. It's beautiful. You can hear all the birds rustling in the tree. And there's one particular bird I heard throughout the full 3 weeks we were walking. It sounded like, wah, wah. I never knew what it was, but I called it the velociraptor. So I also heard it that day. Right along the left of us on this particular day was the Thames and its tributaries. Having found the source of a river and then following it to this point was one of the most beautiful things I've ever done, because it's like seeing the history and the story of a river, and you're seeing it grow. So on the side, we're seeing the trickling of the river, and then the path kind of in front of us is dirt and pieces of gravel. So we're walking along, beautiful weather. The sun starts to get really hot. I'm feeling it in between the backpack and my back. I'm getting really sweaty, but I'm absorbing the beauty. We continue walking, and I'm wondering, where is the damn castle? It signifies the end of that day's walk, or at least near it. But it's nowhere in sight. We're following the river. What would be 1 mile straight turns into 3 because of the zigzag. And my legs really start to hurt in such a way that it feels like I'm being stabbed in my shins and my thigh, and the person is taking the knife and pulling it up and down. And the bottoms of my feet feel like I'm walking on glass. And I think maybe stopping will help alleviate the pain, so I rest, but it gets worse. It feels like I'm being dragged into the ground, so I start walking around in circles. Usually when I'm in pain during this walk, Jed stops to ask me how I'm doing, but I think at this moment she could tell that she just needed to kind of walk forward to give me my space. So I continue walking in circles, walking in circles. I avoid the gaze of people walking past us on the path, heading away from the castle. And all of a sudden, as I'm walking in circles, a story comes into my head. It's a story that I had read on the Humans of New York blog, where Brandon Stanton takes photos of different people. In this particular series, he had been taking photos of Syrian refugees. And there was one story that had stuck in my brain and was now sitting there in my head. It was the story of a woman who, she and her husband, had saved money, working 15 hours a day in Turkey, so that they could pay a smuggler to put them on a boat and bring them to Europe. They saved money for a long time, and when they approached the boat on the day that they were going to take the journey, they had a bad feeling. But the smuggler told them that if they turned around and didn't take the ride, he was going to keep their money anyway. So they got onto the boat. It was full of people, and the woman recounts the story as saying, they were out in the middle of water, and the water started coming into the boat. And the smuggler told them not to worry. Stay in the boat, don't worry. The water continues to come into the boat. And eventually everybody in the boat realizes they need to get out. People start coming out of the window, diving into the middle of the water. As the woman recounts the story, she says that she and her husband were the last people to get out of the boat alive. And the person in front of them is an older woman. Her husband, the woman's husband, hands a life jacket to an older woman. So that older woman has the life jacket, and the woman and her husband are out in the water in complete darkness. And to make sure that they're okay, they start calling each other's names back and forth as they go over the waves. This goes on for hours. She says they swim for about 4 or 5 hours. Eventually, she calls for her husband again, and he doesn't reply. She's in the middle of darkness and doesn't hear him. Here I am walking around in circles. And this woman's face in her picture, she's wearing her hijab, and she's got her hands covering her face, and she's crying as she's retelling the story. And something about it enters my heart. and I walk forward. I can't stop. I'm bound by respect for her and her suffering and her loss of her husband, and she endured, and I decided I was going to keep moving. And the whole time I kept walking. For the next 4 or 5 miles, I held on to her story. And eventually, I rounded a turn, and the castle was there in the distance. And I broke down in tears. And in front of me was my friend Jed. I hadn't spoken a word to her about the story of the Syrian woman. She walks up to me, and like a life jacket, she gives me a hug.